Hello everyone. Today we are going to start a new series where I will be solving UPSC Prelims 2025 GS paper topic wise. I myself gave this prelims. This was my fifth prelims and this was the third prelims that I managed to clear. So throughout this series, I will do a blend of what was my thought process while doing this question in the examination hall and what should be the general formula you should follow while tackling questions of every subject. At the end of every video, I will give you a recommendation on the areas you should focus and the strategy you should follow for each subject. The subject for today is science and technology, and science and technology has proven to be a quite a tricky subject for the aspirants because the syllabus is vast. Most of us don't have a science background, so that adds another layer of difficulty. And the most difficult part is people don't know what to read until what depth you have to read. So all these questions I'll try and answer during this video. So let's start. Okay, so the first question that we have here is asking us that consider the following types of vehicles: full battery electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, fuel cell electric hybrid vehicles. Now, the question is asking how many of the above are considered as alternative powertrain vehicles. Now, the first thing that in the examination hall struck me was what do they mean by alternative powertrain vehicles? The layman assumption seems to be like it should be doing something related to alternative powers, or as we know more commonly, alternative energy sources. Now, in the examination, there is always this doubt: does this mean something more technical, or am I free to assume that it is something broadly related to renewable energy, alternate power sources? So, in such dilemma, what my recommendation is based on my observation for science and technology question is UPSC is not expecting people to be scientists or engineers. What they are expecting is a generalist. So, more often than not, it is safe to assume a broad meaning. You don't have to get to the exact detail of the meaning. Now, this may feel one or two places, but net and net, it will serve you well and it is the only feasible thing to do. A lot of UPSC prelims is about what is the best that you can do and from there on building your thought process. So here, first of all, let's assume alternative power train vehicles is somewhat related to alternative power sources. Now, the second difficulty with this question is the question comes in the format of only one, only two, all the three, or none. Now, based on a cursory reading and taking the meaning as alternative power sources, all these three seem to have offer some kind of alternative power source. Now, there is a very popular narrative with science and technology section that all three are correct is a very safe way to go. But I also agree to an extent, but you have to always be careful. You have to always be one step smarter than the average person to be able to clear this exam. So, what is that one step here? You just stop and try to think, are you able to distinguish these three options based on any other parameter related to the question asked? So, alternative powertrain vehicle. Does anything jump to you in these three options? Like a full battery electric vehicle might be something different to the other two, or for any of the options, does something jump out? You will see based on your knowledge, at least based on my knowledge, nothing jumped out to me. And all these three seemed close enough. So, in the absence of any distinguishing factor, the safest bet for me was to go all the three, and that is what I have marked. Now, UPSC will officially give the answer key in next year, but for now, all coachings have accepted this as all three, and it is the way to go in attempting such questions. Now, here comes the second question. So, the first question was more of a static knowledge plus interpretation based. This question is a classic current affairs based question. Now, let's read the options. Consider the following statements. It is expected that the Moderna one chip will enable quantum computing. The second option is Moderna one chip has been introduced by Amazon Web Services. The third option is deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So now, this current affair was a fairly common current affair available across all sources. The thing is, would you be able to remember the relevant fact about this in the examination hall? So for me, I remembered Moderna and Microsoft. This association was very clear to me in the examination hall. And why did this happen was, based on my previous analysis of PYQs, I had identified 3-4 areas. Those areas were biotechnology, space technology, and emerging tech like quantum computing, AI, cryptography. These are the areas that UPSC has focused a lot. So whenever I found any new current affairs based on that, I took a lot of interest in it. For example, not only Majorna, I remembered Ocelot and Willow also during my examination that these are also quantum computing chips. So once you know this much, then easily second option is eliminated. The first option is obviously true and you can do this question. Now suppose in the examination hall, you do not know any of this stuff. So what to do? So there are two lessons to learn here. First, have those priority sectors and focus on the current affairs and starting materials related to them. The second lesson what you can take is, if you read the option, in the first option, it is expected that Majorna 1 chip will enable quantum computing. So here, what can the examiner make set to get this option become wrong? The only possible is Majorna 1 chip might be doing something not related to quantum computing. Let's say it might be doing something else. Okay. The second option, the simplest way to make it wrong is, instead of Amazon Web Services, it can be it can be done by any other company. And the third option, if it is to be made wrong, so deep learning, machine learning, maybe they are not at all related, or maybe the statement is flipped. These are the only ways these statements can be converted into a wrong statement. And based on the options, we have at max one wrong statement, or we have all the ones correct. Now, the first option, if you see that Majorna chip will enable quantum computing. Now, any chip may have a function with computing. It's a very possible thing. I am going it a bit deep into option analysis, but in science and technology, the thing is, it is very difficult to be exactly knowing this stuff. So it is important to develop this intuition, and only PYQs can help you with it. So that's why I am going deep into this. So it is expected that the Majorna 1 chip will enable quantum computing. Now any chip gives some kind of computing power. So the likelihood of this statement being correct is very high. Now comes the second and third statement. The second statement, it is very easy to make that statement wrong. Instead of Amazon, any XYZ company can be there. So this is one of the easiest option to mess up. The third one is deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Now, since I am from science background, this might be easy for me, but for a non-science background person, this is not that easy. You might say that machine learning is a broad thing and deep learning might be a subset of this, but in examination it is difficult to ascertain that. So, but still, if you are at a place where you are going for a riskier attempt, you want to attend more questions, then logically it makes the most sense to have second as wrong. But still, this is one question I would expect you to be well read with in your current affairs, because quantum computing is a very hard topic. Okay, moving on. Again, as I mentioned before, biotech is also another very hot topic. So monoclonal antibodies. So this topic is also sufficiently covered across all current affairs sources. Whatever I followed, be it Vision, be it Muditsar's current affairs, whatever you might think of, monoclonal antibodies you will find somewhere. The thing is, now in this question again, monoclonal antibodies, as I mentioned, you must have read somewhere to be able to do this question. Now clearly you can see, if you have read about monoclonal antibodies, you will know they are man-made proteins. Then in the name only antibodies is there. So you can think that it might be doing some immunological function, and it can be used in treating Nipah virus. So from this, I can go and create some scenarios how you can detect and guess. But my point is, from this question, the lesson should be that any biotech related term, you should be well versed with it, because the return on investment is very high there. It's a small segment, and if you read the static part well, you will be sure to find at least one or maximum two questions. And two questions is a lot in prelims. Everyone is just falling behind by 5 6 questions only. Any serious aspirant crosses 70 is in the range of 80. The 10 marks push you have to gain from these type of topics only. So I'm not going into detail of how you can decode this question by logic. I'll keep a separate video for that. Now this question. In the context of electric vehicle batteries, consider the following elements: cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel. How many of the above usually make up battery cathodes? Now, here the general narrative is what? Do all of the above. Okay, but what did I ask you to do? Before going for all of the above, just see if there is anything different striking out for you. So, for a non science background student, this is a difficult question, no doubt. And through this question, you cannot gain any insight as to what you should study, because you cannot go and start studying chemistry basics, because UPSC has not been in the habit of asking that frequently. So, you cannot do that. The best I can offer you with such type of question is, if you have any basic knowledge of chemistry that you might have done in 9th and 10th, then you can see that cobalt, lithium and nickel all are metals, while graphite is not a metal. So this can give you a little bit of an insight that graphite is an odd one out. But again speaking, for a non-science background, this is a very tough question. You can't learn much insight from such questions. You can also skip such questions. So moving ahead. Now again, as I mentioned, space tech, another very favorite. So for a serious aspirant, you should be knowing what is Axiom 4, what is SpaceX, what is Gaganyaan, because all these three missions were quite in news. So this is the low hanging fruit of science and tech. The low hanging fruit of science and tech require a lot of effort, but this will give you the edge. Polity Lakshmikant, every serious aspirant will get it right. But this is where you create your edge. So once you know about these three options, then the question becomes that how many of the space missions encourage and support microgravity research. Now in the space already gravity is microgravity. So any space mission, you will already have an inclination that it might support microgravity research. Okay. So even after knowing these three missions in detail, you will have to come up with some intuition only that all the three might be correct. Again reminding you, UPSC might come out and say no, one of these is not meant for microgravity research, it is meant for something else. But that is not the thing we can chase. So always go for broad understanding unless you have a pure scientific fact which you can see to go against the broad understanding. So for this, my intuition will take me to all the three. But the lesson from here is not how to solve this question. The lesson from here is you should be very thorough with your space tech missions, because it's a constant in all UPSC prelims question papers. Now this question. With reference to unmanned aerial vehicles, consider the following statements. All types of UAVs can do vertical landing. Second, all types of UAVs can do automated hovering. Third, all types of UAVs can use battery only as a source of power supply. Now, all these statements have something written like all types of UAVs. Now, again, the first instinct will be like all are incorrect and you go with none. But this is where we are just having one additional layer of safety. Just see that for a statement to be true for all types of UAVs, it should be a very generic statement. For example, all types of UAVs can fly. Okay. Now, since it is already in the name that unmanned aerial vehicles, so unless it will fly, it won't come into the category of aerial. Correct? So, this much basic can be guaranteed for every UAV because it is in the definition only. But other than that, doing a vertical landing or doing automated hovering or being able to use battery only as power source supply, all three seem to be very difficult in ensuring that all types of UAVs have to do it. There might be a UAV which will not be able to do this. Some cheap cost UAVs might be not able to do this. So again, as I said, don't try to create overthinking in these type of questions. Go with all the three. Among all the questions we have discussed till now, only the graphite wala question you might have got wrong if you went for all the options. But all I am saying is always have an extra layer of check, but don't overthink. Okay. All the three is correct here. Now, the question was what is the common characteristic of chemical substances generally known as Cl20, HMX, and LLM105, which are sometimes talked about in the media. Now, frankly, this was a very difficult question. I got lucky because I had seen HMX in some BPSC paper and I knew it was an explosive. So I got lucky. But in an examination scenario, whatever we generally read, it is a very difficult question. Now, is there any lesson? So, the only lesson I could derive was in the past couple of years, the focus on defense tech has increased. But remembering all the facts in defense technology is a difficult task. Now, in UPSC, always calibrate your efforts like this, that how much of an edge this is creating and how much effort I have to put in this. So you have to create at least 5-6 edge over your opponents. So what are the edges that you can create? Like polity, everyone is doing. Lakshmikant, spectrum, everyone is doing. So the edges that are there are, for example, in ancient history. So in ancient history, are there a couple of questions which are very frequent? Like for example, writers' books, a question that is becoming more and more frequent. So you can go deep into that. Or you can have an edge from these defense technologies. Whatever feels easier for you, go for that. But make sure you have to have 5-6 edges across different subject. Things that a normal hardworking aspirant might not get right. You have to get those right. So that is my suggestion. The defense tech is very difficult to remember. If you are going for this because you don't think that you have sufficient edges in other places, then invest in this and maybe you will get this question right, or maybe the next time whatever question is asked you will be able to get that right. Okay, again a very extreme statement question. No virus can survive in ocean virus, no virus can infect bacteria, no virus can change the cellular transcriptional activity in host cells. Now, one way is going like all the statements are extreme, so all are wrong and just mark it. But what I will also suggest is take the pattern with you in your home, that biotechnology basics you should be very 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 good at it, because it is one of the lowest hanging fruit in science and technology. So biotechnology, be very thorough it. If you would have read about statics of biotechnology, I read it from Shivan sir, and I feel he does a little bit detailed analysis. But what I have felt is that his coverage of the subject allows you to develop a capability to think about a question. You develop an intuition about science and tech questions. If you would have read in detail, then you will have known that all these three things we read somewhere or the other. Like we read about bacteriophages, which are essentially viruses that infect the bacteria. The virus whole mechanism is going into the host and then changing its transcriptional activity. And in ocean waters, obviously, virus can survive. A lot of things survive in ocean waters. Okay. So, but the take home message again is extreme statement. Yes, none of them are correct. But also, biotech, give extra focus. Now, again, this question. So, it is a very old current affairs, Gagan. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was giving the papers when even Gagan was in news, so I knew about Gagan. But even if you didn't know about it, let's see if there is any possibility of doing this question. The first option is it is designed to provide additional accuracy and integrity. Now, can there be anything more generic than this? Whenever you will design a system, it will be there to provide more accuracy and integrity. So, this is the most generic statement that UPSC could have offered. So, one is definitely you can assume that it will be correct. The second is it will allow for more uniform and high quality air traffic management. Okay. Now it is a navigation system, at least that much we can see. Navigation and air traffic management. Don't these things so go together? Like if you have good navigation, you can manage traffic better. Obviously. So these are very obvious statements. Now the third, it will provide benefits only in aviation but not in other modes of transportation. So, can you think of any single argument why a navigation system which is aided by GPS not provide benefits in any other mode of transportation? This is a very counterintuitive statement. So, even if you don't know anything about Gagan, these three statements, reading them with any level of logical interpretation will allow you to reach the answer. Okay. So in science and technology, it's very important to read the question. Even if you don't know the first term, just try to read the words and just try to create logical interpretations through the English meaning of those words. You will find you can crack at least 3 to 4 questions this way only. So this is the lesson in this question. No other lessons with respect to what can we read based on this. Okay. Again, a defense question. If you know about it, and if you don't, you don't. As I had mentioned earlier, defense tech, it's a cumbersome thing to prepare. But if you feel you do not have enough edge across your subjects, then you prepare for this, and then you'll know the answer for this. I didn't in my examination. Okay, now again another question where you have to use some knowledge gained through study and some intuition. So one thing you must have observed that whenever I am talking about intuition, it is not blind guessing or trick guessing or intelligent guessing. What it actually is you read the static part so well that you develop an intuition for the subject, and you develop a thing, something like, okay, this should happen, this should not happen. And this kind of intuition only comes after you read the static really well. So that's why I'll suggest that science and technology, don't leave it. Go through one standard source which covers the topics in good enough detail. You don't need to remember all the stuff. What you need to do is develop an intuition for the subject. It should not be any more foreign to you. Okay. And again, Shivan sir felt like I have been chasing a good science and technology source for a long time. But before Shivan sir's videos, I couldn't find any. So again, this is not a advertisement promoted by him. I just felt him useful. That's why I am telling other people also. Okay. Now this question. Some rare earth elements are used in the manufacture of flat television, screens and computer monitors. So we read about rare earths so much that some rare earths used in screens, computer monitors, it's a very plausible statement. Even if you have any basic knowledge about rare earths and the plethora of points they are used in. So that's why reading broadly is important. Now, the other thing is some rare earth elements have phosphorescent properties. Again, the word some is used, and since there are so many rare earth elements, it is very difficult to say that none of them will have phosphorescent properties. So, both statements are true, that much part is relatively easy. Now, the next part is, does statement 2 explain statement 1? So the problem might fall on you if you don't know what phosphorescent means. Now this part I will not bullshit you that you can have some magical intuition. No, it is difficult for anyone not following this. Phosphorescent might be something related to TV screens, might not be. So in an examination scenario, it's difficult. Okay. But the lesson you can learn is the two statements. If you had any static knowledge about rare earth elements and some um, common sense via the word some, so then you can come at a conclusion at least that both our statements are correct. Now it's between A and B. It can be like, since you get to 50-50, my rule is if I get to 50-50, I attempt that question. You can have your own rule, but that's as far as you can go based on normal knowledge. Now, this question, the Kavach, it was very much in news also because Indian Railways were talked a lot by the Economic Survey. But again, I'll not go too much into that because Economic Survey talks a lot about a lot of things. For means, it is advisable to cover it. But for prelims, specifically going into every topic that Economic Survey is covering is not that easy. Okay. Now, but still we'll always try to read the options. The options first say Indian Railways has prepared a national rail plan to create a future ready railway system by 2028. The second is Kavach is an automatic train protection system developed in collaboration with Germany. Okay. The third says Kavach system consists of RFID tags fitted on track in station sections. Now, frankly speaking, in the examination, I didn't know if the first statement was correct or not. I wasn't very sure about the second statement also. But the third statement was cover system consists of RFID tags fitted on tracks in the station section. So based on my science and technology intuition, that Kavach is some kind of train protection system. This much I know. Now train protection system must be using some type of signaling. That's how it will communicate. And RFID are a very common method of communicating. So my intuition will lead me to say that yes, this statement might be correct. Now, what else information is there in the question? They're asking which of the statements are not correct. So basically, among the three, at least two are not correct. One is at max correct. Okay. So again, going by that logic of if the examiner wanted to make this question wrong, how would have it? If the examiner wanted to make the option wrong, what possibility did it have? Okay. So the first option, read it thoroughly. Indian Railways have prepared a national rail plan to create a future-ready railway system by 2028. Now, Indian Railways must have created a national rail plan. It's very unlikely that they are not creating any plan. And if they are creating a plan, it must be to create a future ready state system only. But the only catch here is the year 2028. Now, if you'll notice, whenever the years of any target are decided, they are generally some kind of significant year. It can be a 75th year of independence, 75th year of foundation, or a 2025, 2030 sort of an year. I am not saying this is a foolproof system, but what I am saying is among these three, at least two are wrong. And the third statement seemed to be correct in all intuitive sense. So I'll see if the other statements are prone to wrongness. If I find enough intuition that they can be wrong with even a 50% probability, I'll go with that intuition because I have a very high intuition on the third statement being correct. So that is how you structure your thought process. Again, in the second option, in the whole thing, the most concerning point is collaboration with Germany. Now, Germany can be replaced with any number of XYZ countries, but it's not very straightforward that this is wrong. But in the circumstances that two are wrong, third I strongly feel is correct. It's very much likely that 1 and 2 are the wrong statements, and you can very much confidently go with 1 and 2 are the incorrect ones. Now, this last question, there's not much to learn for you. If you would have casually read about artificial rain, you might be able to do this. But if not, don't beat yourself up with it. Don't chase such questions because there is no pattern. Basic science knowledge, UPSC has not asked enough to be spending time on that. So, such questions just create this lesson that okay, some questions you won't be able to get in science and technology. So these were all the questions that were there in the UPSC 2025 prelims paper. If you went through these questions with me, you would have realized that science and technology is a combination of finding areas you have to focus more on, developing an intuition for the subject, and developing an intuition for the kind of questions UPSC is asking. Once you do these three steps together, science and technology can be a very scoring and rewarding subject. And it's lot easier to create an edge in this as compared to say in environment or ancient history. So what I would suggest is pick your battles. Someone may be more comfortable remembering ancient history names. So do that. But always remember to try and create 4 or 5 edges. As we go through more and more subjects, I will show you more areas you can create edges on. Edges which are feasible to create and are likely to give you rewards. So for this video, that's all I had. If you have any questions or comments or any suggestion as to what should I include in this series, please feel free to suggest it. Thanks a lot.